a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Darkman. Darkman is a 1990 American superhero film directed and co-written by Sam Raimi. It is based on a short story Raimi wrote that paid homage to Universal's horror films of the 1930s. The film stars Liam Neeson as Peyton Westlake, a scientist who is attacked and left for dead by a ruthless mobster, Robert Durant, after his girlfriend, an attorney, runs afoul of a corrupt developer. Unable to secure the rights to either the Shadow or Batman, Raimi decided to create his own superhero and struck a deal with Universal Studios to make his first Hollywood studio film. It was produced by Robert Tapert, and was written by Raimi, his brother Ivan Raimi and Chuck Pfarrer. The design and creation of the makeup effects required to turn Liam Neeson into Darkman were the handiwork of makeup effects artist Tony Gardner, who also cameos in the film as the Lizard Man in the Carnival freak show sequence. Darkman was generally well received by critics, and performed well at the box office, grossing almost $49 million worldwide, well above its $16 million budget. This financial success spawned two direct-to-video sequels, Darkman 2, The Return of Durant, and Darkman 3, Die Darkman Die, as well as comic books, video games, and action figures. Over the years, Darkman has become regarded as a cult film. Plot. Scientist Dr. Peyton Westlake is developing a new type of synthetic skin to help acid burn victims. He is frustrated with a flaw that causes the skin to rapidly disintegrate after 99 minutes. His girlfriend, attorney Julie Hastings, discovers the Belisarius Memorandum, an incriminating document proving that developer Louis Strack has been bribing members of the Zoning Commission. Before she leaves, Westlake asks her to marry him, but she hesitates. When she confronts Strack, he confesses, but shows Julie what he's been planning, to design a brand new city which would create a substantial number of new jobs. He also warns Julie to keep her guard up as mobster Robert Durant wants the document. Back at Westlake's lab, Dr. Westlake is conducting an experiment when the lights go out. Dr. Westlake and his assistant Yakatito are astounded to find the synthetic skin is stable after 100 minutes. Westlake deduces that the synthetic skin is photosensitive. Their joy is short-lived when Durant and his crew show up and demand the Belisarius Memorandum, which Westlake knows nothing about. While searching for the document, Durant and his gang kill Yakatito. They proceed to beat Westlake, burn his hands and dip his face in acid. After they find the document, they rig the lab to explode, leaving Julie to watch the explosion. The blast throws Westlake through the roof, into the river. Thought to be dead, he survives, but is hideously burned. He is brought to a hospital and subjected to a radical treatment which cuts the nerves of the spinothalamic tract, so physical pain is no longer felt. However, he also loses his tactile sensation. The loss of this sensory input gives him enhanced strength due to adrenal overload and keeps his injuries from incapacitating him, but its absence also mentally destabilizes him. After mourning the loss of his lab and realizing how badly burnt he is, Westlake re-establishes his lab in a condemned building, using digitization to create a mask of his original face. The process is long, and in the meantime, Westlake plots revenge against Durant and his men. He kills Durant's favorite henchman Rick, but not before forcing the latter to reveal the identities of those involved, along with their criminal activities. He then studies his enemies, in order to subdue and impersonate them. When his face mask is complete, Westlake manages to convince Julie that he is indeed alive, and was in a coma rather than dead. He is aware of Julie seeing Strack after his supposed death, and eventually confronts her, to which she responds that Strack only comforted her. Westlake doesn't tell Julie about his condition, but asks her various questions on whether or not she would accept him, regardless of his appearance. Westlake now has a full clock schedule, making the skin last longer than 99 minutes, visiting Julie, studying his enemies and even mimicking their voice patterns in order to assume their identities to cause confusion and sow dissension. This culminates in him impersonating Durant himself, causing confusion among the mobster and his henchmen. When Westlake and Julie have a date at the carnival, an altercation causes Westlake to lose his temper and inadvertently reveals to Julie that there is indeed something wrong with him. She follows him as he flees, and when she discovers his discarded mask, she calls to Peyton that she still loves him regardless. Julie tells Strack she can no longer see him, and after discovering the Belisarius memorandum on his desk while he was on the phone, confirms he was collaborating with Durant the entire time. She reveals Westlake is still alive, but Strack tells her as long as he has the memorandum, no charges can be filed. When Julie leaves, Durant enters and is told to capture Julie and kill Westlake. Durant and one of his men Skip intercept Julie, kidnapping her as the prelude to his attack on Westlake's lair. Two of his men, Guzman and Smiley, then enter the lab to locate and kill him, only to be outmaneuvered and eliminated. Durant fires upon him from a helicopter, as Westlake dangles from a cable attached to the aircraft, until he succeeds in causing the helicopter to crash. He impersonates Durant when he meets up with Strack and the captive Julie as Strack plans to make one less attorney. Westlake's ruse is broken by Strack, who fights him 650 feet above ground. When Westlake gets the upper hand, Strack calls his bluff, saying that killing him will not be something he could live with. Westlake drops Strack, remarking, "I'm learning to live with a lot of things." Julie tries to convince Westlake that he can still return to his old life, but he tells her he has changed on the inside as well, and cannot subject anyone to his new vicious nature. In the final scene, he runs from Julie as they exit an elevator, and is seen from behind pulling on a mask which, when he turns around, reveals the face of Bruce Campbell. During this scene, Westlake can be heard off-screen, "I am everyone and no one. Everywhere. Nowhere. Call me Darkman." Cast and characters. In addition, Bruce Campbell has a cameo in the film as Peyton's last-seen disguise. Sam Raimi, along with director John Landis, have cameos as hospital staff. Jenny Agutter has an uncredited cameo as the doctor treating Westlake's burns. Origins. For a long time, Sam Raimi had been interested in adapting a comic book into a film. He had pursued and failed to secure the rights to both The Shadow and Batman and decided to create his own. The initial idea Raimi had for Darkman was of a man who could change his face. He has said that he drew inspiration from those films as well as The Phantom of the Opera and The Elephant Man. Raimi was also inspired by the Universal horror films of the 1930s and 1940s, because they made me fear the hideous nature of the hero and at the same time drew me to him. I went back to that idea of the man who is noble and turns into a monster. He originally wrote a 30-page short story, titled The Darkman, and then developed into a 40-page treatment. At this point, according to Raimi, it became the story of a man who had lost his face and had to take on other faces, a man who battled criminals using this power. It also became more of a tragic love story in the tradition of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. In 1987, Raimi submitted the treatment to Universal Pictures, which they liked, green-lighted a budget in the range of $8.12 million, and suggested that he get a screenwriter to flesh out the story. Screenplay. The more Raimi worked, the more Darkman became a crime-fighting figure, a non-superpowered man who, here, is a hideous thing who fights crime. As he became that hideous thing, it became more like the Phantom of the Opera, the creature who wants the girl, but who was too much of a beast to have her, Raimi said. The process of developing his treatment into a screenplay was difficult, with Raimi hiring ex-Navy SEAL Chuck Pfarrer based on his work on Navy SEALs. He wrote the first draft and then Raimi's brother, Ivan, wrote drafts 2 through 4 with Sam. Ivan made sure that the medical aspects and scientific elements were authentic as possible given the nature of the story. As Raimi and his producing partner Robert Tapert progressed through various drafts, they realized that there was a potential franchise on their hands. Universal brought in screenwriting brothers Daniel and Joshua Golden to work on the script. According to Daniel, they were presented with various drafts and lots of little story documents. There was just material everywhere. Drafts seemed to go in many directions. Golden said that they spent a lot of time talking and pulling together a way of making the story work. "I think that mostly we talked in terms of the nuts and bolts of the story." The Goldens added new lines of dialogue, new characters, and bits of action. The studio still wasn't satisfied, so the Raimi brothers wrote drafts 6 through 12 before they had a shooting script. For Raimi, He wanted to emphasize Peyton/Darkman's arc over the course of the film. He said, "I decided to explore a man's soul. In the beginning, a sympathetic, sincere man. In the middle, a vengeful man committing heinous acts against his enemies. And in the end, a man full of self-hatred for what he's become, who must drift off into the night, into a world apart from everyone he knows and all the things he loves." Pre-production. Working with Universal meant a significant increase in budget for Raimi. This allowed him to design and build a laboratory set for Darkman, and afford helicopters and professional stuntmen to film the climactic helicopter chase through the city. He was eventually given $16 million to work with, including a longer schedule and much more effects work. Visually, the filmmaker was interested in paying homage to Universal horror films of the 1930s. Production designer Andy Sayre remarked, "If you look at Darkman's lab that he moves into, which is an old warehouse, what was on my mind was Dr. Frankenstein. There were a number of references visually to what we were thinking about in regards to those films." Raimi consciously wanted to tone down his style, because of a desire to get into the characters' heads and follow them as real human beings in extraordinary circumstances. McDormand and Neeson worked closely in rehearsals, rewriting the 3 love scenes they had together after he becomes Darkman. They got through these scenes, according to the actress, by depending on each other's knowledge of theater and each other. Principal photography. Raimi said directing McDormand was very difficult. Raimi said, "Apparently I didn't know Fran as well as I thought I did. The reason it was difficult was that our conception of the best movie to make differed, arguing and trying to make the best picture possible. We did come across disagreements, but they were very healthy." Durant's finger collection developed over the Pfarrer and Raimi brothers drafts. The director wanted a specific trademark for the character, one that hinted at a military background. Neeson worked in 10-piece prosthetic makeup, sometimes for 18 hours. He saw the lengthy time spent in extensive makeup as a challenge and liked the idea of working behind a mask on camera, and just exploring the possibilities of what that entailed. He and makeup effects designer Tony Gardner did tests using specific glues, foams, and bandage coverings. They also timed how fast they could apply the prosthetic makeup and put the costume on. Neeson worked with the costume designer on his outfit, including aspects like the cloak. The hardest part for the actor was speaking with false teeth, and he ended up doing a lot of work on my voice. I didn't want the false teeth to move at all. Editing. Raimi and Tapert ran into conflicts with the studio during post-production. The director had a problem with the editor that the studio assigned him, and 8 weeks into assembling the rough cut, he was not following Raimi's storyboards. The editor had a nervous breakdown and left. Early preview screenings did not go well as people laughed in the wrong places and complained about a lack of a happy ending. Universal told Raimi that some people rated Darkman the worst film they had ever seen. According to executives, the film was one of the worst-scoring pictures in Universal's history. Then, 2 preview screenings, one with Danny Elfman's score, went well. Tapert remembers, "The experience on Darkman was very difficult for Sam and me. It isn't the picture we thought it should be, based on the footage we shot and all that. The studio got nervous about some kind of wild things in it, and made us take them out, which was unfortunate." However, Raimi did like the brilliant marketing campaign that the studio came up with, releasing posters in advance with the silhouette of the main character and the question, "Who is Darkman?" According to the director, the marketing made the film a money-maker. Soundtrack. Released on August 17, 1990, the soundtrack to Darkman was composed by Danny Elfman, who previously scored the music to Tim Burton's Batman in 1989. Elfman said of his score, "Again old-fashioned and melodramatic, but in a way that I'm crazy about. Sam Raimi has a wonderful visual style that lends itself easily to music. It was an enormous relief writing long, extended musical sequences, something which is very rare in modern films. No reason to hold back on this one." Marketing and box office. Ads asking, "Who is Darkman?" began appearing on bus benches, public transit, and television as early as June 1990. Universal VP of Media Vic Fondrick said that the studio did not want to spend much money promoting the film in advance, but we wanted to create some intrigue for the Darkman character. On its opening weekend, Darkman grossed a total of $8 million in 1,786 theaters. To date, the film has grossed a total of $48.8 million worldwide. Critical reception. The film enjoyed generally favorable reviews and holds an aggregate of 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. Out of the 55 reviews, 45 were positive. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of C+ on an A+ to F scale. Los Angeles Times film critic Michael Wilmington felt that Darkman was the only film at the time that successfully captures the graphic look, rhythm and style of the superhero books. Terence Rafferty of The New Yorker said, "Raimi works from inside the cheerfully violent adolescent male sensibility of superhero comics, as if there were no higher style for a filmmaker to aspire to, and the absence of condescension is refreshing." USA Today gave the film 3 out of 4 stars. However, Richard Corliss in Time said that Raimi was not effective with actors, and People's Ralph Novak called Darkman a loud, sadistic, stupidly written, wretchedly acted film. Entertainment Weekly gave the film a B rating, and Owen Gleberman wrote, "The movie is full of jaunty, grand guignol touches, but Raimi's images also have a spectral, kinetic beauty." In his review for The Washington Post, Joe Brown wrote, "Though Raimi seems to be trying to restrain himself, his giddily sick sense of humor still pops out all over the place. Darkman is a frenetic funhouse ride that has you laughing and screaming at the same time." Darkman was singled out for notice by comic book writer Peter David in the Comic Spy's Guide as the perfect superhero film of all time, although this assessment was based upon other features of the film than general quality. Darkman is now regarded by some as a cult film. DVD. In 1998, Darkman was released on DVD. Bonus material included production notes, cast and crew bios, and a trailer. In 1999, The Return of Durant was released on DVD. Bonus material included production notes, cast and crew bios, a trailer, and web links. In 2004, Darkman was released on DVD as part of the Universal Studio Selections. The DVD contained no bonus material or even a main menu. On August 7, 2007, all 3 Darkman films were released in a box set by Universal Studios Home Entertainment. Each is presented in 1.85:1 anamorphic widescreen, along with an English Dolby Digital 5.1 surround track. No extra material was included. The high-definition version of Darkman was released on HD DVD July 31, 2007. In other media, Darkman has been the subject of 2 Marvel Comics series, numerous novels, as well as a video game published by Ocean Software. Darkman. Tony Gardner's company Alterian Incorporated produced 2 different Halloween masks of the Darkman character after the film was released. Merchandising for the character but disappeared for close to a decade until SOTA Toys obtained the rights to make a Darkman action figure. SOTA president Jerry Macaluso was interviewed by Dread Central. In 2005, SOTA produced 2 versions of their Darkman action figure, as well as a Darkman statue. Dynamite Entertainment announced in 2006 that it had reached an agreement with Universal Studios Consumer Products Group to produce original comics based on Darkman. A bi-monthly limited series entitled Darkman vs. Army of Darkness was published from August 2006 to March 2007. In November 2007, Sideshow Collectibles put up for pre-order a 1:4 scale, premium format figure version of Darkman that would be released third quarter 2008. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?